And 3, 2, 1. What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, the Lo-Fi Horror Guy. Welcome to another episode. This is actually going to be a part 2 of a more recent episode of mine with Mr. Tom Smith. Tom!
Hey, what up, buddy?
What's going on, man? How's it going?
Going good. How are you?
Sweet. Very good, man. Thank you so much once again for coming and hanging out. I appreciate you coming back.
Yeah, of course.
Well, so we got cut off a little bit. There was a couple of moments here when I went into editing that kind of got choppy as far as when we started talking to about your podcast. So first and foremost, everybody that's just joining, Mr. Tom Smith from the Acacia Strain. My dude, we had a first part of our interview here a few days ago, got cut off a little short. We had to come back. So Tom, thank you so much for coming back, dude. I appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, of course, man.
All right, so first off, I want to dig in. I want to dig into the podcast again. So Riff Filled Land Podcast is a little over a month old. You've got some absolutely sick guests on. What started this all for you?
Basically, I mean, I'm pretty obsessed with podcasts. I think I mentioned last time, sorry, I forgot my water.
Never.
I'm pretty obsessed with podcasts. When I moved to North Carolina and before I had a job or whatever, I didn't really fucking know anybody. So it was like, I would just pop a podcast in and do my daily thing. So I became really obsessed with them that way. And then it just got to be like, I want to do something that showcases a different side of music. Like there's so many music podcasts that are just like, how's the new record going? You know, like what tour dates you got coming up? And I mean, that's all cool. Like I listen to a bunch of that, but I care more about the songwriting part of shows of bands and musicians than I do like what their favorite meal is on tour, you know? Like I've got enough of that on my own experience with touring that that's not as much an interest for me. But I really just wanted to kind of create the show that if I was like 15 years old, when I was like first starting to dabble with songwriting, what I would want to learn about. And that's what I'm trying to do. Like, just kind of anybody who's just getting into songwriting, maybe they're struggling with their own band, like trying to communicate with them. Maybe they are trying to tackle a new genre, you know, just kind of giving insight of people who have, quote unquote, made it in music. And I use that term incredibly loosely because I do not feel like I have made it in music, and I'm sure most of my guests don't either. But yeah, it's basically, I just want to give people my insight and the insights of my friends, because I've got a lot of friends in bands, so might as well use my friends to pick their brains, you know?
Use the resources you got, yeah. You know, it's cool
exactly.
Like last time I had mentioned, you know, a couple of the just like random like road documentaries, and when I was younger, that was certainly something that I thought was so cool, was just seeing like their kind of day to day, and then you know you go and you think every day's like fucking Van Halen, and it's like, dude, they're just hanging out, like they're just kicking it at a mall, like that's, you know, I mean, it's pretty straight skateboarding somewhere.
Yeah, we go to a mall every day before a show. Like that's just what we do. We sit around and drink coffee and people watch. That's because that's all we have to do, you know.
right. And it's cheap enough. It's good enough entertainment. Shit.
Yeah, exactly. There's food, there's air conditioning and heat, and there's coffee, and that's really all you could ask for on tour.
So now with the show, are you trying to span off into like some Peter Frampton? Like, are we going like all sorts of portals with guitar, or are you just sticking straight like hardcore metal?
I would love to. The ultimate goal is to branch out into like bigger artists. Like I have such an infatuation for like James Valentine of Maroon 5, like guys like that, and guys in pop bands and guys in cool rock bands. Like I was just watching while I was eating and waiting to start this, I was watching an interview with the guitar player from the Brothers Osborne, the country band, who I've never listened to, but I was so mesmerized by what he was talking about, just about his gear, that I just want to, I want to kind of, I'm obviously starting in like the hardcore metal realm just because that's what I know, but I love so many other genres that I'm like, if I can get bigger and different people, of course. I just love music. I love guitar. I love hearing different experiences with guitar. So the goal is definitely to get if I can get Peter Frampton, fuck yeah, I'm gonna get Peter Frampton.
Right. Well, that's because I mean, like that was one of those things too. You had mentioned as far as like being into pop music and and kind of branching off into that and having something successful, and that kind of sprung a little bit of a light. Like, dude, that'd be sick. Like just to have some like maybe even somebody that was touring with Taylor Swift and like was just kind of like going off and just kind of talked like day to day on something like that. Like that'd be absolutely wild to hear about.
Yeah, there's also like a very I have a very selfish level with the podcast too, where I'm, as much as I'm trying to inform other people, I'm absolutely trying to just learn new things and be like, whose cool approaches can I steal and see like who's smarter than me? Like I think the only way to learn is surrounding yourself with smarter people, so I'm going to talk to as many smart people as I can,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, we're in the same boat with that because this whole thing started with interviewing, horror cats like in the community and then drummers. So it was like kind of my idea as far as like, oh, okay, well, like what gear do you use? What kind of tips and tricks do you have and different things? And, it's just like, it's really cool to hear some behind the scenes. Like, for instance, a funny story pertaining to your band, Kevin always sits on his drumsticks. He's got like a set of them behind him. And I stole that, like, I don't know if it's been a couple of years or what, but I've used that ever since, and I'm like, and I actually had to use it. And I'm like, oh shit, like that works.
I've always been so mesmerized by the fact that he like won't get just like a stick bag, because he just likes to have them under his legs,
Yeah. I think like normally too, because I kind of sit a little bit forward when I play. So one of the first times that I did it, I was just like, oh, well, I'm not even really sitting on them. They're just kind of wedged. And if I need it, it's right there. Boom. I'm like, dude, he's a genius.
Yeah,
fuck.
That's exactly how he is. Yep.
So along with obviously you being into music, we early on hit it off as far as talking about horror movies. You have an interest in movies as well, but also in horror movies. So we wanted to this episode was going to be more about all of that. So if you could just hit me with your horror origin, where did all this start for you?
So I was so afraid of horror movies as a kid. Like would turn off commercials if it was late at night and I was watching TV. Like so afraid of. I remember one day watching Malcolm in the Middle, and then I couldn't find my remote, and the X-Files came on, and I was so afraid of just the intro music that I like screamed for my mom and dad like a total wuss. So then I was like, as I got a little older, I was like, I gotta toughen up a little bit, So my dad and we had a plan to watch the original It movie together when I was, I think, like 10 or 11, and I ran out of the room at like the first like quote unquote scary scene, because that movie's not actually scary, at least in my opinion. But when like the mud monster comes out, I fucking booked it out of the room. And then it was probably 3-4 more years before I actually tried a horror movie again. Maybe not as much. Like the first horror movie that I ever watched in full was White Noise, that Michael Keaton movie from like 2004-ish. I think I was like 11 or 12. So maybe I have my ages a little wrong at some stuff, but got through White Noise, and I was so pumped that I got through a movie that I was like immediately hooked. And I was just like, my dad's a big horror fan too. So I would just, every single Friday or Saturday night, we would just watch a horror movie together. And I went so quickly from like White Noise, which is like basically just a drama with some jump scares, to like the most crazy horror movies I could possibly find. Like, granted, the early 2000s were a pretty bad time for horror movies, in my opinion, but like from going from running away from an X-Files commercial to watching like Saw, House of a Thousand Corpses, Texas Chainsaw Massacre within like 3 years, I was like, all right, I'm pretty tough now. Like I could do some movies,
Right. So up till now, what would you say are like 3 of your favorite horror movies?
That's really hard. I've got like, there's so many that I love for so many different reasons. I'm like a big rewatcher of movies also. Like I mean, just TV and movies in general. Like I love rewatching things. So my favorite horror movies are more or less the ones that I've like just watched constantly. Like House of a Thousand Corpses, Scream, and those are like the 2 that I watch the most. And let's go we'll go with Funny Games, because Funny Games is more than just that's like one of my favorite movies ever. That movie still scares me more than any other movie, because it's so bleak, and it's so just, there's so much juxtaposition where it's like this bright imagery, but it's the darkest fucking thing ever. That movie has scared me more than any other movie I've ever watched in my life. So those are like my three main ones, but there's so many more that I love. Like, I just watched John Carpenter's The Thing for the first time ever, like a month ago.
Oh,
and
my God.
That immediately became one of my favorites. I love the original Halloween. I love, what are some others? God, it's like when I'm on the spot, I can't think of them, but there's so many that I'm just so obsessed with.
Sure. Okay.
I mean, those are good three ones.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, those are awesome ones. You know, like, I kind of in the same boat where I have like the same like comfort food movies that I'll watch over and over. But then there's a couple of companies out right now, like Vinegar Syndrome and Severn. They're distribution companies that they just release these movies, and like my wife will buy something for me for, you know, like whatever occasion. And I come, you know, and I open it, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, never heard of it. But then I watch it, and it's awesome. Like those companies release some sweet shit. If you ever get a chance to check them out.
Yeah, I'll have to definitely dive down that. And like a new thing, that's a new thing for me too, is like really liking like a production company or anything. Like, I didn't realize that A24 made almost every movie I've loved in the past 5 years, you know?
Yeah.
And so now I'm definitely more aware of like what production companies are doing cool shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, A24 seems like everything that they're putting out is absolutely amazing. Them, and then RLJE, they put out like a lot of the S. Craig Zahler stuff, and they've been putting out like, you ever seen Color Out of Space?
I haven't, no.
Ooh, dude, it's got Nicolas Cage in it. It's very like The Thing, very The Thing-esque. I would watch that immediately. That movie is awesome. Amazing.
Yeah, any movies that you think I should check out, tell me now, and then message them to me, because I'll definitely forget it. But anything that I should check out, I'm always down to watch new movies.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's one of those ones, like, Nicolas Cage is in so much nowadays that it's kind of hard as far as, like, you know, weeding through what it is that he's doing, but it was just a random thing. Have you ever seen the original older Pet Sematary?
Chunks of it. It was like one of those movies that we would watch on Warped Tour a bunch, but I was always just in and out of the bandwagon, so I would always see pieces of it. That's another thing. Like, classic movies, I'm so bad with, because I guess I got into movies at a later age that now I'm like, oh, I'm in my mid-20s. I should go back and watch some of these classics. But yeah, I've seen just chunks of that one.
Well, there's a character named Zelda, and she's the mom in the movie. It was her sister that had some like really bad disease, but she's just notorious. Like, you ask tons of people that have seen the movie, and they're like, oh, Zelda is one of the creepiest things I've ever seen in a fucking movie. Like, just disgusting. And this Color Out of Space movie has a character in it that is probably like the scariest thing since I've seen Zelda. So there's definitely some like really goofy, silly, slimy shit, but then there's a couple of creepy parts that are actually like legitimately like a horror movie. So it's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I gotta check that out then. Oh, yeah. So a couple of days ago when I first messaged you, you'd given me a couple of ideas of some of your favorite horror movies. You know, like you had a little bit more time to think, and I came up with a couple of recommendations for you that I was going to show you out of my collection. The first one you had mentioned was Inside, which was 2008. I was about to bring that up because I was like, fuck, I got to talk about Inside. That movie's crazy. Yeah. And it's so funny that you brought that up, too, because I was like, holy shit, I never hear anybody talk about that movie. Like, French horror, it seems like in the mid-2000s, they were the ones that were doing the shit right. Yeah, I feel like America is just so far behind with everything horror, for the most part. Like, I said, there's, like, A24 is doing it right, but everybody's a couple steps behind back here. I think it's because everyone's too afraid of being artistic. They want the big release, but yeah, go on, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, and you hit that right on the nose as far as like, because because I love, S. Craig Zahler stuff, for instance, just because the stuff that he releases, it really feels like that's the shit. Like from day one, like that was the movie that he wanted to put out. It wasn't something that the production company or, some bigwig cut it down to some goofy, cut or whatever. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I for sure agree.
Yeah.
The first movie, though, because you had mentioned Inside, the first movie I was going to recommend and see if you've ever heard or seen of is Martyrs. You ever seen this one?
I've heard of it. I don't know anything about it. I was just like on a list that somebody was like, "Oh, you should check this out." But I've never seen it.
It's another French movie. It came out, I believe it was the same year, 2008. It's two directors, which now I'm going to screw up thinking of who it was, but it was from two directors, basically. The original one had since been remade, and it was remade terribly. But this movie, like, there is some straight up just grisly, terrifying shit in it.
Awesome, yeah.
Like, it's just another French horror movie that, it's like one of those things that is really eye-opening. And it's kind of, it's heart-wrenching, too, because it's this couple of girls that were in... let me think of what it was. It was in like this like abandoned warehouse, and they were kind of like being sold as slaves, and they get broke free, and the one girl ends up dying, and she's kind of haunted by the other one. But there's some terrifying shit in it. So for sure, Martyrs was the first one.
That sounds cool, because I'm not a big fan of like paranormal stuff. That's always where like I kind of draw the line. But stuff like that, where it's like you see an experience and then there's something that might be like a spirit doing it, that I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like there's a reason behind this. But a haunted house, I'm just like, I don't care about a haunted house.
Right. Well, and then, like with like Ari Aster's stuff, for instance, he has stuff kind of hidden within the movie the whole time, where you're just kind of like, what the hell is going on? That's very much with this too. Like you'll see certain little things hidden here and there, and it's kind of hard to find on DVD, but I think it's actually on like Amazon Prime right now, so you can
sick, yeah.
Check it out. But watch the original one, not the remake.
Okay, word.
So then the second one you'd mentioned, what you just mentioned, was Funny Games, and it made me think of like a home invasion movie. And so I had found this Audrey Hepburn. It's called Wait Until Dark. You ever
Never saw that. I've heard of it. That's another one I've just heard of. I feel like that typical guy of like, oh yeah, I've heard of that band, but I don't listen to them. But yeah, I've heard of that movie as well, just because Audrey Hepburn's super famous. But yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Well, and it's one of those things too. Like, it's by no means a judgment. It's kind of fun as far as like, meeting somebody like you and I can talk about music, and we can go back and forth and our common interest with that. And then, like you could also probably tell me tons of metal bands that I'd be like, oh shit, like I've never, or, like a certain guitarist that has, different things. So, that's kind of the fun thing about, the whole horror angle with this is like, oh dude, if you like this movie, like you should check this out. But basically Audrey Hepburn she's newly blind. I can't remember if it was like a huge flash or something had happened, but she lives at home, and basically there's something in this house that she had received that she wasn't supposed to, and these two guys are trying to break into the house. And so kind of along the lines with Funny Games, as far as like kind of like a home invasion type deal, they're trying to break in and trying to, stay quiet while she's walking around the house and everything. And so it's for the 60s, it's definitely a creepy movie.
Yeah, cool. That's another thing I've been getting into too, is just like going back for the really old ones, because I feel like they're always like either super short and it's like get in, get out, or they're this like awesome slow burn of character development. But yeah, I'll definitely have to check that one out for sure.
Yeah, it's certainly sick. I don't know if it's on anything like streaming or whatnot. I picked it up on Blu-ray. And then this last one, unfortunately, I thought that I had a copy of it, and I do not. But you had mentioned you'd like The Thing. And so a movie, it's currently on Hulu if you get the chance. It's called I Am Not a Serial Killer. It's got Christopher Lloyd. I'm trying to think of some of the other cats that are in it. But basically, this kid, his parents own a morgue, and so he's constantly down and like seeing dead bodies, and kind of has like this like build of like people are thinking he's gonna wind up kind of messed up or whatever. And then through all this, there starts being a bunch of like murders in his town, and so people start kind of looking at him, thinking that he's the one that's doing it. And there's I'll just say that I'm recommending it because of The Thing. So there's something more going on, and it's awesome. It's a really, really cool twist, and it's from 2016, so it's a newer movie too, but
cool.
Very good.
Yeah,
Certainly worth a check out.
I might even check that out tonight. Like I've got pretty much every streaming service I need, but I like Christopher Lloyd a lot, and I've seen that one like on the Hulu searches, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Like I thought it was like a documentary or something, but that's really awesome. I'll check that one out.
It's based on a book, which I haven't read it, but a buddy of mine had told me like the book is absolutely amazing. So I plan on checking that out because it was just like 2 or 3 days ago I found out.
Yeah, that's super cool. I'm gonna definitely check that one out as soon as I can.
The last remainder that we were going to take up, we had decided on we're going to do a movie review of Midsommar.
Yep. Oh, so good.
Boom. First off, I had to blam that up there. You know what I'm talking about?
Hell yeah, I love that.
If you ever hear of Studio House Designs, they're the ones, dude. They got some sick merch, horror movies,
That's
and all.
awesome. I'll have to check them out. There's another company, Graveyard Goods. That's a good buddy of ours, and he's like done a bunch of our merch designs. Even his company is awesome, and he's got like a cool like Midsommar thing, and he's got a bunch of cool stuff. It's basically all horror movies and then typo negative, which is perfect for me.
Sick. That is I mean, it's a perfect blend. You really don't need anything else.
No, you don't. It's
and your guys'
both
stuff.
Forms of
shit.
Yeah, it's both forms of darkness in art perfectly.
That's so funny. Oh my god. All right, so basically we're just going to kind of cut this down as far as like a review. If you want to give a little bit of a synopsis as far as what Midsommar was about.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure I was hesitant to do such like a popular movie as this, but it's just so fucking good that it's like, why not? Basically, anybody who hasn't seen it, this group of Americans, they befriend, I forget what country he's from. I want to say it's like Germany or the Ukraine or something.
Sweden.
Sweden? Okay, yeah. Somewhere in, Sweden. They go to his combine, which is basically a cult that you think that, I mean, it's essentially Waco. Like, they even make a Waco joke in the movie of like, oh, I guess I didn't realize we rolled into Waco. But I think the most interesting thing, okay, back to the synopsis. Basically, they get to a cult, combine, whatever you want to call it, and just shit starts to hit the fan. I don't want to give too much because I think so much of the cool surprise in the movie is just seeing the events unfold, but I think the most intriguing part of the whole movie to me is that even though it's like technically like a murderous cult, they're not really evil and violent people, like in a sense. Like they clearly are, because they're taking random people and doing horrible things to them, but it's almost like a sustainability thing. Like they have their cycles that they believe in, and everybody dies at 72 years old. But and every year, to honor what they believe in, they have to sacrifice X amount of people. But to keep the numbers of their own people alive, they have to get random people, which is horrific and terrible. But I don't know, there's something about that movie where I'm just like, holy shit, this is such a beautiful place that just is trying to survive, you know? And maybe that's me looking too deeply into it, but that's just the impression I got, and that was what mesmerized me so much. Is like, while it was some of the most horrific things I've ever seen in a movie, or not even horrific, the most uncomfortable things I've ever seen in a movie. There's so much about like the community aspect of it. You know, everyone is so deeply and emotionally and personally connected in that group of people that I'm like, holy shit, this is, and I mean, just visually, the whole thing is insane. But yeah, the idea of this cult that isn't really like a we need the power kind of thing. It's more of like a we need to sustain ourselves, and this is how we have to do it, but we're going to also honor these traditions that we've made. I was just fucking blown away by it. I was like, this is one of the most unique things I've ever seen in my life. And I don't think there's any movie that will ever be made just like that. I think that's one of those like once in a universe kind of movies.
I agree. And after the first time that you watched it, did you have just like a resonating feeling where you're like into random conversations with somebody and you're like, oh shit, I wonder if that's what that meant?
I haven't talked to a ton of people about it.
No, I don't mean about it. I just mean like after, like what I guess what I mean is like literally it was days after watching this movie because I went and saw it the first day in theater. I loved Hereditary. I was such a fan, so like I just was so excited to see it, and I saw it in theater. So my initial reaction was I wasn't a fan of it. Like I was just like kind of bummed out because of how impressed and like amazing I thought Hereditary was. You know, I saw this and I'm like, but literally it was days after. I'd be in the middle of a conversation with somebody and I'd stop and I'd just think like, oh shit, is that what that meant? Like just thinking to myself, you know, like it just like festered with me days after.
Yeah, it didn't happen in a sense where like I would be conversing with somebody about something random and it would click, but I had such a deep like personal connection to it because I did a few years ago, I did this like a workshop kind of thing where it was like about just kind of like leadership and like learning where you fit in community. Like I'm very much like a mental health guy, like kind of borderline like a personal hippie. And I did this workshop that like my fiance and her whole family has done where it's like you have this group of people and it's kind of like a coaching seminar. It's kind of like a training thing where like you do activities, but a lot of it was like figuring out ways to come together with a community and have a common goal and just make it happen. So I had such a connection with that because there's a lot of like emotional involvement with that. And I mean, a lot of people think that like the thing I did is like culty, but if a cult is like learning your own personal development and bettering yourself, then sure, I'm in a fucking cult, you know? But like it was a lot of like group activities that you get like really vulnerable and you embrace the people that you're around and like you understand your differences with people and how you can still find common ground and connection with each other. And that to me, I think is probably what made me love it so much. Like as weird and as fucked up as the scene where the boyfriend is having sex with the one girl and it's all the women around them and they're all like borderline orgasming together. Like granted, I never did anything fucking like that. Like this was like I don't know, like you figure out a way to like design something or you go out and ask random, like take a survey kind of thing, you know? Like I didn't do anything fucking where I'm having sex in a room with a group of people, but like the idea behind that they're all feeling that same emotion, they're all feeling that same experience was it hit me home very much because I went through like a workshop kind of like training thing where I had to, with literal strangers, like it was just a bunch of people that we all signed up for it and we learned how to come together as if we were best friends. And then within a week I left literally knowing those people better than some of my own family. And like it just resonated so much with me to that because while obviously, like I said, none of my experiences were anything like what happened in Midsommar, it was so much of that like community-based thing. And so I mean, that's a very long-winded answer to your original question. No, I didn't have a conversation and things pick up, but so many things while my first watch, I was like, oh, I mean, that's fucked up and this is terrifying to watch. But if I can put myself in their shoes, I get why this community is so powerful for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You know, and it was like, there's just, even with Hereditary and with this movie, you know, there's all sorts of different feelings as far as I feel like a lot of people mention, you know, the dread aspect of, you know, how he builds his stories and dialogue and characters. But then you mentioned vulnerability as well. And, you know, there's a scene where, I remember like one of the things that kind of pointed out to me initially watching was when they first get to, you know, the commune and they're looking around and all the people are speaking Swedish and, you know, they're going back and forth and they didn't caption it, you know, so it's like, well, what the hell are they saying? And then thinking about it a little bit more,
I love that they didn't caption it.
Yeah, because it makes you start feeling like you're Danny or that you're the Americans and like, well, what are they saying? Like, what exactly is going on? You know, and and it just kind of adds on to, you know, that whole vulnerability feeling of like, what the hell am I in for?
Yeah, and that I think that was my biggest takeaway from Hereditary and Midsommar. I think while they're vastly different movies, I think you can appreciate one more because of the other. Like, I appreciate Midsommar more because of Hereditary. I appreciate Hereditary more because of Midsommar. And I think part of that is just, like, the, for Midsommar especially to make sense, you can't try to figure it out along the way. And, like, I talked to my best friend. Me and him have a very similar opinion on movies, and he wasn't a big fan of Midsommar because he just didn't really get it. And I was just like, try to rewatch it. Don't question any of it. Like, just let it be in front of you, and you'll appreciate it more. Like, just take exactly what's going on in front of you for what it is, and then reflect on it afterwards, you know? Like, I think that's part of what being vulnerable is like you said, where they didn't capture that. Like, you don't know what the fuck's going on. But sometimes, just in everyday life, you can't really figure out what's happening. You can just react to it. So just let that be, and then kind of just... Sorry, I got a phone call, and I think that cut it off. The last thing I was saying was just, like, let your reactions kind of just guide the way that you go through it, rather than trying to really pinpoint a motive or, like, a reason behind everything.
Yeah, for sure. And there's lots of people, like, if you go online, there's lots of different conspiracy theories, and, I never tried to really, like, dig into all that shit, and you read some of it and you're like, ooh, okay, I can kind of see that. But then, there's lots of things. I think it's one of the things I appreciate so much about his directing and his movies in general is that you watch it and then you watch it again and you watch it again, and there's literally, it's like you pick up on new shit every time. Like, the movie's been out for I don't know how long, and it was literally a couple of days ago I watched it. And there's the scene where Pell's talking to Danny, and, he's trying to say, like, I understand. I lost my parents. And she kind of starts, like, crying on her bed, And then he mentions the part where he says, like, well, I understand both of my parents burned up in a fire. And then I started thinking about, I'm like, well, wait, like, were they one of the examples where, like, they sacrificed themselves and they got burnt, like, on the platforms? Or did they go on the triangle thing and get, like, burnt up in there as, like, a sacrifice in that sense? Like, and because he talks about being a little kid in the community, like, maybe they didn't want that, so it's just, like, questions like that where it's like, I probably shouldn't even be asking this shit, but it's just so wild that it's like, he definitely has a whole lot of different little Easter eggs. Like, in the end, did you notice the scene where, like, she just gets, like, the flower crown put on, and you can see her sister, like, back in the woods behind her?
Yep. And I think that was kind of playing with what I think you're going with. The way that they kept I'm trying to think of the way to explain what I'm getting at. The way that they kept kind of bringing the borderline, like, vertigo and confusion. I forget the main character's name. But the way that they
Christian.
Like, at the beginning, Christian, when they're, like, tripping on shrooms or whatever, the way that she feels so confused, and, like, she starts seeing her family members, or, like, just feeling the presence of her family members, the way that they kept leaving that in throughout it, I thought was so awesome, because I feel like a lot of times in movies, like, the initial trauma of a character is important, but they don't illustrate it as much as if it's, like, it's just a flashback usually. Like, it's usually just like just here's that same scene again, and with a bright light that leads you in and out of it, But with Christian in this movie, there was so many times where, like, she is looking at, like, when she's looking at her feet and the grass starts growing through her feet, or she's dancing around the May thing and her family members are there. It's like, to me, that was like, holy shit, you're really showing how active this trauma is to somebody. And, I mean, granted, I don't have any deep trauma like that in my life, so I don't, on a first-hand experience, know it, but I can imagine that that's what it's like to have something like that. Like, you see their faces everywhere, you feel their presence everywhere, and you've got to somehow figure it out. So, like, for me, her character and the way that she acted was so vital, because it was just, here's this person who's truly in the most pain in her life, and she is struggling with her boyfriend, who is kind of, like, I don't think he's a bad person, but I think he's a terrible partner. She's just trying to deal with all of it. And I think that was part of what, like, led to her being so open to the Combine, is she felt that community that she was lacking, and she felt the family that she was lacking. And I know that went off on a tangent, and I might have gotten away from your point that you were trying to make, but to me that was with Christian, and the way that she just is throughout the whole movie was so spectacular. Of like, they did such a good way of showcasing trauma in the movie to me, and like showcasing how it affects you.
Yeah, and truly, like, as opposed to, like you were saying, as opposed to just like a little half-second montage where you're like, okay, I don't really care. You seeing that whole thing, and you hearing her calling and crying and saying like how upset she is and she won't answer and all that, and then the whole scene where it shows like the parents and the sister in the house and shit, it's just like, oh my God. And I mean, just the grief after, and there's the one scene too where he's like about to go to that party or whatever, and if you look, there's like a painting above her where it's a little girl, like a little blonde girl kissing a bear, and like what happens at the end, as far as like him and a bear. I was like, so just some of the little like subtleties as far as his stuff is. Have you ever seen his short films?
No, I haven't. I don't really know anything else about him as a director other than Hereditary and Midsommar, and I'm okay with only knowing that. Like, those are two fucking home runs of movies, But I haven't watched any of that, any of his shorts.
There's a couple of other. I'm trying to think. The one is called The Strange Things About the Johnsons. And basically, like, he was still in film school. That was his first short that he ever made, like his first like movie, anything that he ever made. And he was in like a conversation, like, circle group, as far as talking with a couple of different members that were in his class, and they were trying to come up with the most taboo thing. And the short's probably like 30 some minutes long, but basically it's about this father and and mother, and they have this son. And the son, like, over the years, grows more and more attracted to his dad, and like winds up like molesting him. And it's just
holy shit.
Deep, like, just terrifying. And the crazy thing is too is like the actor that's like the lead role in the short, he's the actual one that came up with it. So they like wrote a script, filmed it, and it just like blew the shit out. Like, people were like, "What the hell is this, dude? Like, get this shit out of here."
What was that called again? I want to check that out. I really like short films because it's like you've got to pack all this emotion into a short amount of time. So I got to check that out.
Oh no!
I think we're good now. I think we're good.
All right. I think the internet doesn't want me to be telling you about this.
I know, for fuck's sake.
No, it's called The Strange Things About the Johnsons.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out because that sounds insane.
It is wild. He's got, I think, 4 or 5 shorts, and really, like, I mean, as far as you were mentioning, like the whole mental health, every one of them kind of hits on a different angle, and there's a couple of different. There's one, I'm trying to think what the dude's name is. He plays the dad in The Strange Things About the Johnsons, but he's in probably 2 or 3 of his shorts, and he's just kind of. Have you ever seen Get Out?
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me of the lead character in Get Out that has just those like crushing eyes. Like, he just like looks like he's just like so devastated the whole movie. It's the same way with this guy too, and he's in a couple of the shorts, and he's really, really good. But that one in particular is horrifying.
Okay, yeah, I've got to check that one out for sure.
Hell yeah! So as far as Midsommar, if you could give it out of 10, what would you give it?
1,000. Like, there is not there is not one moment of that movie that I was like, this sucks. Like, or there was nothing that I'm very nitpicky with movies, and not in the sense of like it's gotta be XYZ, but like things like in I watched the movie Us the other day, and I was really. I hated it. I'm still really angry about it, and I wanted to love it because I thought the concept of it was so fucking good, and I do need to rewatch it. I haven't rewatched it, and usually on a rewatch, I'm a lot more accepting of like little flaws. So granted, I say that, and I need to rewatch it, but there was so many moments in that movie where it was like they could have gotten away, or they had the upper hand, and they just walked away before getting the true upper hand. And it's like, it is 2020. That movie was made in 2019. That's lazy writing to me. Like, that is... And granted, I'm not a fucking filmmaker. I'm not a writer. So what does my opinion matter? Like, I like, if somebody were to tell me that somebody who didn't write songs told me that my songs suck, I'd be like, fuck you, I don't care. So my opinion doesn't really matter on it. But, like, movies are there's so many movies out now, and there's so many good ones, and there's so many more bad ones that I don't understand why the bad conventions are still happening. And that's what I loved so much about Midsommar. And it felt the same way with watching The Lighthouse. Like, those are my two newest favorite movies, and there's not one moment in it that felt incorrect. Like, it never felt like there was another option for them, you know? Like, maybe the characters made bad choices, but they were natural choices. Like, these characters definitely shouldn't have followed some random Swedish guy to a combine, but they committed to it, and they had a reason for being there. Like, some of them had a paper to work on. Others were just looking for an escape. Like, Christian just needed an escape, and she was trying to create connection with her boyfriend, who she felt her relationship was failing. Like, those are natural reactions, and it felt real to me. And granted, like, it's clearly an extravagant movie, but it was done in a way that felt real to me, and it just blew my fucking mind. And I can't say enough about how much I love that movie. I started watching it, and then I had to go do something and finish it the next day. And my fiance and one of our friends were over. I was like, I've got 15 minutes left in this. I have to finish this. And I was just screaming at the TV at how much I loved it afterwards. Like, it was one of those movies that my jaw was on the floor, and I just sat there with my hands on my head for like 10 minutes, just watching the credits scroll, trying to take it all in. And my fiance and her friend were like, "You liked it, huh?" I was like, "Yeah." That's one of the coolest movies I've ever seen in my fucking life. So
Nice.
I can't say enough good things about that movie.
So with your interest with The Lighthouse, have you ever heard of a movie called Cold Skin?
No, I have not.
Well, this is another, I want to say, French director. Okay, so anyway,
okay, it's another one to add to the list.
it takes place on a little island there with a lighthouse, and basically this kid's going to kind of learn the trade and everything. It reminds me basically of like The Lighthouse meets The Shape of Water.
Okay, that's cool.
So they go out, and he's kind of learning the trade and everything. Well, then he slowly realizes that this lighthouse keeper is keeping something, like in his possession. And then all of a sudden he realizes it's like this like weird mermaid monster thing. And he winds up like, as opposed to more of a horror theme, it turns into kind of like a romantic thing until night falls, and all of these like counterpart monsters are like mermaid things are trying to come up on like onto the lighthouse and attack them. And they have to learn to like fend for themselves and fight all these things off and shit. Awesome movie.
Sounds so fucking cool.
Dude, it is. And it's one of those ones where like it's not going to be something where you're going to walk away kind of like a Midsommar with like tons of like, oh, what happened, or could this mean, but it's definitely like visually and just overall like it's very like super super good. Definitely one to check out.
Yeah, I'll have
and
to
with
check
being
that
a fan
for
of The
sure.
Lighthouse too, for sure. It came out I think, probably like 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely have to look into that one.
I'll send you a message, dude. I'll let you know all the ones I just slapped at you.
List all of them, because half of them are already gone from my small brain. But yeah, list all of them.
For sure. Well, dude, I really appreciate it. We're gonna end this off for right now. I'm thinking about starting a little bit of a thing here within maybe sometime as far as doing like horror movie reviews with just some guest people. So I might shoot you a link there and see if you'd be into it, dude.
You are a very fun host and fun to talk about movies with and music with. So anything I could do to keep hanging with you on here, yes.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Do you wanna pitch anything before we go here? I'm gonna have your counterpart here, Kevin, in about 15 minutes on the show. So if you have anything new going on, some new stuff with your podcast, this is your time, my dude.
I mean, I put a new episode out today of the podcast. It's with Ryan LaTrue. He used to be in For Today. He's in Nothing Left now. He's one of my best friends in the music industry, so it's
Oh
very
shit,
fun
he
talk.
was in For Today.
Yeah. He was. Yeah,
Oh,
he's one of the,
that's where. Oh my god. Okay, I haven't gotten to listen to that yet, but I saw him and I'm like, God damn, I know who that dude is. I just can't think of where he's from. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
He's awesome. No, you're fine. Yeah, he's one of my best friends on the planet. Like it bums me out that he gets lumped in with the drama surrounding For Today because he is not that person at all. But he's the new. Hi, I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Oh my god, I've given myself screen time limits on certain apps, and I gave myself one for Instagram, and it just booted me off.
Sick.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. I've been trying to be on my phone less. But yeah,
No problem.
Ryan LaTrue, good dude, podcast at Riff Filled Land. I am doing like commissioned writing stuff, like I did for you for the intro of the show. I don't know if that's even out, but I spoiled your release if not. But doing a bunch of intro, like whether it's for podcasts, Twitch streaming stuff, just songwriting, doing commission stuff with that. My Instagram is probably the best way to get at me. I'm in the middle of getting like a website created for like just everything that I do and offer, because I'm also doing guitar lessons now. I have a handful of students, but I'm always looking to get more of them. Yeah, that's basically what I have going on. And our new record is out July 24th. Yeah.
Yes, I can't wait.
That's all I got though.
I've combined all the singles together, and I've been listening to it that way. But I can't wait to hear it all in full, and hopefully get the other 2 tracks too on vinyl. I can't wait to hear those too. And was last
one of the
last
other
but
songs
not
is
least.
one of my favorites.
That's what you're saying. Which one is it?
It's not on. I can't say it yet, man. It's got to come out. It's on the
The tracks are released.
No, they're not. Are they?
Yeah. Well, in
Whatever it is, it's track 2 on the record.
Okay.
It's track 2. So I'm not going to say names, but it's track 2 on the record.
Right. Yeah, I'll have to find it, because there was somewhere the other day I was looking at it and it had all 12 of the tracks on there, and I was like, ooh, shit, because I can't remember. Of course, I can't remember which one it was now, but there was one of the tracks where it was like the track titles, and I was like, oh, that is tough as shit. It might have been track 12. I hope it is. I'm
seeing Kevin comment on this saying that they're all out, but I'm realizing right now that I don't even remember the actual name of it. It's
gonna rip either way. You said it's different.
It's called Crippling Poison. That's what it is. Crippling Poison. That's one of my favorite songs we've ever written as a band.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, that's the name of it. I just remembered it.
Sweet. Very, very cool. And that was my last thing I was going to say is thank you so much for the intro, dude. I've had it on the last few of my shows, and people have just been complimenting the shit out of it. So I tell them every time to go to you, because it's amazing. I couldn't have asked for anything more perfect.
That was a really, really fun one to work on. And I've been, like, anytime somebody asks me, I've been sending them your original and sending them that one to be like, this is what I did to this intro. And every single person has loved it. So yeah, I'm happy that you enjoyed it and that other people are too.
Awesome. I know my wife and I, we were out for a walk just like in this small community, and I started playing it and I'm like, oh, I got to blast this shit. Hold on, check this out. This is so sick. Bunch of like old people just trying to mind their manners and do their yards and shit, and I just blasted the fuck out of it. I couldn't not. I was so excited.
That's awesome. I'm happy that you like it, man.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much, buddy. I really appreciate it. Tom Smith, the Acacia Strain. Next, we're going to have Kevin from the Acacia Strain as well, growing on you live. Tom, take care, buddy, and be safe.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Yep, you too, buddy.
See ya.
See ya.